They stood just ahead of me at the counter, handing over their IDs and confirming the spa package. Mitch looked tired, but Krissa was full of energy. She wore that wide smile she always used when she was trying to look good in public, the kind that hides what she really thinks. Before we get into today's story, don't forget to subscribe for more heartfelt stories. Tell us where you're watching from. We love hearing from you. Share your experience in the comments. We were at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, waiting to check in for a family getaway to Sedona. Krissa had called it that, said it would be nice to include Mom this time. Her voice over the phone had been sugar-coated. She's been through a lot, she told Mitch. It'll be good for her. I was surprised by the invite. Truthfully, I hadn't packed for a vacation in years. But I said yes. I thought maybe this was a step forward. A chance to feel part of things again. I was wrong. When it was my turn to step forward, I reached into my purse for my ID and boarding pass, but Krissa was already speaking to the attendant. "There's a mix-up with the rooms," she said, turning to me with that same rehearsed smile. "Looks like they only had 2 available in the main resort, but don't worry. We found a quiet little hotel just down the road. It'll give you your own space, comfort, you know?" Mitch avoided my eyes. Then I heard her say it, not to me but to him, low enough that maybe she thought I wouldn't catch it, but I did. "She's just extra baggage. Why did we even bring her?" The words sat heavy in my chest, like something sharp that didn't quite cut, but left a mark just the same. I said nothing. I didn't cry. I just nodded like I understood, like that made sense. I've gotten good at staying quiet when it matters most. They checked in, took their matching roller bags, and walked ahead toward the gate. I followed slowly, dragging my old carry-on behind me. It had a small rip in the corner, same one it had since the trip to Oregon, when Mitch was still in high school. They didn't wait for me. At the gate, Krissa gave me a small printed map. "This is where your hotel is," she said. "We arranged a shuttle. It should be easy to find." I took the paper and nodded again. Mitch kissed the top of my head. Quick, like a habit. "We'll meet up after dinner," he said. "Spa's at 5. You'll have some time to settle in." I didn't ask what spa. I knew I wasn't invited. On the plane, they sat 2 rows ahead. I saw them take selfies, share earbuds, and laugh at something on Chris's phone. She leaned her head on Mitch's shoulder. I looked out the window and watched the clouds go by. When we landed in Sedona, the sun was already beginning to dip. The air felt warm but dry. My shuttle was waiting outside. Just like they said, a young man held a sign with my name on it. "Ms. Brooks?" I nodded. "Yes, that's me." Krissa waved once from the back of her Uber. "Enjoy the quiet," she called out. Then they drove off. The shuttle driver didn't speak much, just drove with the windows slightly cracked and a local radio station playing soft music. I didn't mind the silence. I needed it. The hotel was fine, older, a bit worn. The kind of place traveling salesmen probably used back when that was a thing. The room was on the 2nd floor, no elevator. He helped me with my bag, left the key card on the table, and disappeared before I could tip him. Inside, there was a small bed, a laminate desk, and a window that overlooked the parking lot. I stood there for a moment, letting the quiet sink in. No fruit basket, no note, just an air conditioner humming too loudly, and the distant sound of a couple arguing in the next room. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at my phone. No messages. I'd raised Mitch mostly alone. His dad died when he was 10. I remember all the school pickups, the soccer games, the late-night sewing patches on jeans we couldn't afford to replace. I remember how, in college, he used to call me every Sunday just to check in. I don't know when I became extra baggage. I don't remember that shift. I changed into my nightgown, boiled water in the coffee maker just to make the room smell like something familiar, and ate a granola bar I'd stuffed in my purse. At some point, I stopped wondering if they'd call. They didn't. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. There was a water stain in the corner, shaped like a crooked heart. I watched it until my eyes stopped trying. That night, something inside me changed. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even sadness. It was like something let go. I didn't say anything to them. I didn't cause a scene. I didn't demand better. But a part of me, one I hadn't felt in a long time, stood up. And she wasn't going to sit back down. The room smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and old curtains. Not bad, just worn out, like everything in it. The bedspread had that flat texture that didn't invite you to sink in, just to lie still and not make a mess. There was a single chair near the window, but the view wasn't much, just the back lot and a few scrubby bushes lining a low brick wall. I unpacked the few things I brought: 3 shirts, 2 pairs of slacks, 1 pair of sandals, and my small toiletry bag. I placed my book, Minding the Past, something I'd picked up from a used bookstore months ago, on the side table, though I wasn't in the mood to read. I turned on the TV for a bit, flipped through the channels, then shut it off. Nothing on, just people trying to sell you something. Dinner didn't come. I thought maybe they'd offer to meet, but nothing. My stomach grumbled a bit, but I didn't feel like ordering anything. I walked down to the lobby and got a small pack of salted peanuts from the vending machine. That and a bottle of water. I sat on the edge of the bed and ate slowly, counting each nut just to make it last longer. It wasn't about being hungry. It was about not being forgotten. When I went to sleep, I didn't dream. I just closed my eyes and waited for morning. The sun came up early. Arizona light is different, sharper somehow. I got dressed, brushed my hair, and sat by the window with a cup of hotel coffee that tasted more like cardboard than beans. I looked at my phone. Nothing. No message from Mitch. No, how are you? Not even a thumbs up emoji. I didn't send anything either. I figured if they needed me, they'd find a way. And if they didn't, well, I'd survived longer silences than this. I took a walk through town. Sedona really is beautiful. The Red Rocks Tower in the distance, and the little shops all sell stones and sage and handmade soaps. I wandered past a bookstore, peeked inside a bakery window, and watched a group of women in wide-brimmed hats laugh over iced teas. I wasn't looking to join anyone. I just liked hearing the sound of real conversation. It brought something back, an image, clear as day. Years ago, back in Pacific Grove, I used to run a small bakery 2 blocks from the water. Brooks and Butter. That's what the sign read. Cream-painted letters with little gold flourishes. Mitch helped me paint when he was 12. It wasn't fancy, but people came in for my strawberry rhubarb pie, especially during the spring fundraiser season. Every May, I'd bake a dozen pies for the elementary school, wrap them in clear wrap, and label each with a handwritten tag, "Baked with Care by Anna Brooks." People called me dependable, steady. I remember the morning of Mitch's high school graduation. When he stood on that rickety stage and gave his little speech, he looked right at me in the front row and said, "My mom is the rock this family stands on." His voice cracked a little when he said it. Everyone clapped. I cried all the way back to the car. I haven't heard that version of my son in years. I kept walking. Not fast, just steady. A woman passed me on the sidewalk with a baby in a sling, humming a little tune. 2 teenagers were trying to take selfies near a mural. A man with a silver beard and camera waved and said, "Beautiful morning, isn't it?" I smiled and nodded. Yes, it is. The hotel looked the same when I got back. I walked up the 2 flights of stairs, a little slower than before, and let myself into my room. Still no messages. I sat on the bed and took off my shoes. I don't know what I expected when I agreed to come on this trip. Maybe I thought we'd all eat breakfast together. Maybe a photo or 2 by the rocks. One of those tourist shots that end up on someone's fridge. I didn't think I'd be left alone in a room that looked like it hadn't changed since 1994. But I didn't call Mitch. I didn't text Krissa. I didn't remind them I was here. Sometimes it's better just to watch, not for revenge or to make anyone feel bad, just to see things clearly, to pay attention. That evening, I made myself a cup of tea from the single pouch on the desk. It was peppermint. I drank it slowly while looking out at the lot. A young couple unloaded their car 2 spaces down, laughing as they tried to carry too many bags at once. I remember doing that once, years ago, with Mitch and a stack of grocery bags. He dropped a carton of eggs, and we both laughed as they splattered across the porch. Now I just sat quietly, letting the steam warm my face. The silence didn't feel cold anymore, just honest. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I needed to say anything to be heard. By the third morning, I had the hotel's coffee routine figured out. 2 lukewarm carafes in the lobby, one labeled regular and the other decaf, though I suspected they both tasted the same. I'd tried it once and decided I'd rather spend $3 at the little coffee cart I spotted near Bell Rock the day before, so I walked there. It wasn't far. The sun was already warming the sidewalk, and the breeze carried the smell of dust and something sweet, maybe cinnamon rolls, from the bakery down the street. My knees ached a little, but it felt good to move, to be somewhere unfamiliar and quiet. The cart was run by a young man in a ball cap who barely looked up when I ordered. I asked for a small black coffee. Nothing fancy. He handed me the cup without much to say. That was fine by me. I sat on the edge of a low stone wall and took a sip. It was bitter, but stronger than what they had at the hotel. I was halfway through the cup when I heard a voice behind me. Anna Brooks, from Pacific Grove? I turned slowly. A woman in her mid-50s stood there, wearing a wide-brimmed hat and sunglasses, holding a cold drink. She lowered her glasses and smiled wide. I knew it. I knew that was you. I recognized your eyes. I blinked. I'm sorry. Dottie. Dottie Ramsey. I used to come into your bakery. Oh, this was years ago now. Right after my divorce. You probably don't remember. She laughed a little, but her voice cracked at the end. I tilted my head, trying to place her. The name sounded familiar, but I couldn't see her face the way it used to be. Still, I smiled and said, Dottie Ramsey. Of course. You like the lemon chess pie. Her eyes lit up. Yes. I'd buy a whole one. Eat half that night, and the other half for breakfast. We both laughed at that. She sat beside me on the wall. You don't know what you meant to me back then, she said. That bakery was the only place I felt normal. You didn't ask questions. You just remembered my name, made me feel like a person. I didn't know what to say. I hadn't thought about those days in a while. Back then, it was just something I did. Bake, smile, keep going. But hearing her now, I realized maybe it had mattered more than I thought. I'm glad you're doing okay, I said. I am. She nodded. It took a while, but yeah. My son lives here now. He's a property attorney. Good kid. Little too serious, but he's got a heart. Moved out here with his wife last year. I smiled. That's nice. Sounds like he's doing well. He is. Hey, are you staying in town long? I hesitated. Just for a few more days. Family trip. Well, sort of. She caught the tone and didn't push. Well, if you want some company, or if you're tired of hotel food, let me know. I'd love to treat you to lunch. I owe you at least 10 pies worth of kindness. I laughed again, surprised at how easy it felt to talk to her. Maybe, I said. I'll think about it. We exchanged numbers. She typed mine into her phone and showed it to me to confirm. Then she gave my arm a little squeeze before heading off toward a hiking path. I stayed sitting there a while longer, finished my coffee, watched a couple tourists take selfies in front of the red rocks. I didn't feel as invisible today. Back at the hotel, the room felt smaller than it had that morning. I kicked off my shoes and sat on the edge of the bed. I reached into my suitcase and pulled out the old notebook I always travel with, the one I use more for scribbles than anything else. But this time, I opened to a blank page and started writing a list. Not of groceries, not errands. Just a plain list, like this: what I still own, what I gave away, what I never got back. Under what I still own, I wrote the cottage on Bayview, the bakery building, the small rental behind the bakery. Under what I gave away, I paused, then wrote my time, my savings, more than once, my place in my son's life. Under what I never got back, I hesitated. This one stung. The feeling of being needed, real thank yous, Sunday morning calls. I looked at the list. No anger, just facts. I tucked the notebook under my pillow and lay back, arms folded across my stomach. The hum of the AC was steady. The curtain fluttered slightly in the breeze from the cracked window. For the first time since the trip started, I felt present. Not like a ghost in the room, not like a third wheel or forgotten luggage, just myself, Anna Brooks. Not someone's mother, not someone's extra baggage, just me. And for now, that felt like enough. It was around noon when my phone started buzzing. I saw Mitch's name flash across the screen. I didn't answer. I stared at it for a few seconds, let it go to voicemail, then turned it face down on the nightstand. I already knew why he was calling. Something told me it wasn't about lunch plans or checking on how I was enjoying Sedona. 10 minutes later, it buzzed again. This time it was Krissa, that one I didn't even look at. I sat at the little desk in the corner, sipping the last of the coffee from the lobby. Bitter and lukewarm, still better than dealing with either of them. I opened the small closet, took out my suitcase, and started folding my clothes. No rush, no noise. I folded everything neatly, zipped it closed, and placed the hotel key card on the desk. I didn't bother to call the front desk, just walked out, pulled the door shut behind me, and went down the stairs for the last time. Outside, the air had shifted. It felt lighter, or maybe I did. I ordered a cab to Flagstaff. It came within 20 minutes. The driver was a quiet man, with kind eyes, who didn't ask questions. I sat in the back seat and looked out the window as the red rocks faded behind us. No one called again. At the airport, I bought a one-way ticket back to California. It wasn't cheap, but I didn't blink. I had the money. I just never used it for myself before. The flight was uneventful. A little turbulence. A crying baby 2 rows up. I didn't mind. I sat by the window, hands folded in my lap, and let the hum of the plane fill my ears. We landed in Monterey just before dusk. The breeze hit me the moment I stepped outside. Cool, salty, familiar. I hadn't realized how much I missed that ocean air. I got into another cab and told the driver where to go. Marcia's house was still painted green. Same white shutters, same slightly crooked mailbox. She'd lived there since her second divorce. Said she'd never move again. I knocked once, and she answered like she'd been expecting me. She didn't ask what I was doing there, didn't look surprised, just opened the door wide and said, "Well, come in already. You look like a woman who's ready to stop being used." That was all. She poured me a cup of tea, handed me a blanket, and pointed to the couch. I didn't say much, just sat down and let the quiet wrap around me. Back in Sedona, I imagined Mitch and Krissa were starting to panic. Maybe it started when the resort desk asked for a backup card. I knew they'd planned to use points, and I also knew Mitch hadn't checked the balance ahead of time. When the charge came through and the front desk wouldn't let them check in without a valid card, I figured they scrambled. He probably tried to use mine, but I'd already transferred my account weeks earlier, after I noticed him using it for groceries, by mistake, for the 3rd time in a row. I didn't tell him, just took my name off quietly. So when he tried to reach me, he was probably hoping I'd bail them out, but I didn't, and I wouldn't. By the time they realized I was gone, I was already asleep on Marcia's couch, covered in the soft old quilt she kept folded at the end. No note left behind, no explanation, just silence. The next morning, I woke to the smell of fresh coffee and the sound of gulls outside. Marcia had gone out early. She walked every morning to the pier. I poured myself a cup and stepped onto the porch. The view hadn't changed much. The same little shops, the same rustling trees. This place held a lot of memories, but it didn't feel heavy. It just felt like mine. My phone sat on the table, face down. I didn't turn it over. I wasn't angry. I just didn't want to be reached. Later that afternoon, Marcia came home and handed me a manila envelope. "I stopped by your old place. Thought you might want this," she said. Inside were the extra copies of my rental agreements, the original deed to the bakery, and a key I hadn't seen in years. Silver, a little worn, still labeled cottage back unit. I held it in my hand and smiled. "I didn't think I'd be back," I said. "You're not back," Marcia said. "You're just finally where you belong." That night, I lay in the guest room, staring at the ceiling fan, turning slowly overhead. I didn't cry. I didn't feel empty, just still, like someone who finally stepped off a ride she didn't remember getting on. I had no plans to call them, no urge to explain myself. If they wanted to figure out what happened, they could do that without me. They'd made their choice when they called me extra baggage. I'd made mine when I didn't stay to carry it. I sat on the edge of Marcia's guest bed that morning and reached for my suitcase, the same bag I took to Sedona, still zipped tight, still dusty from being shoved under too many hotel beds over the years. I pulled it up onto the bed, unzipped it, and dug down to the very bottom. Underneath my last clean blouse, next to the pair of shoes I never wore, was the folder I always traveled with, but never opened. I pulled it out slowly. It was soft from years of handling, the corners bent, the label peeling. But inside, everything was still there. Deeds, receipts, a copy of the business license from the bakery, tax forms from the last year I filed on the rental property. I held each paper like it was a memory. The bakery building on Forest Avenue. The unit behind it, I used to rent out to a young couple with a baby. The cottage I moved into after Ed passed, before Mitch talked me into coming to live with him, just for a little while, when he lost his job. I had never sold them. People assumed I did, and I never corrected them. I always paid the property taxes on time, quietly, with my own money. I kept it small, manageable. The rent covered most of it. I just never talked about it, not even to Mitch, especially not to Chrysa. I kept those properties not because I had some grand plan, but because they were mine. The bakery was the first thing I ever owned, fully on my own. Bought it with insurance money and grit. The cottage came next. That place saved me more than once. I painted every wall in it myself. It wasn't big, but it was enough. I sat back against the pillows, folder in my lap. I hadn't looked at these papers in years. Not properly. I always thought I was holding on to them for Mitch, for his future. But now I realized I'd kept them for me. I took a deep breath and thought about Dottie. Her kindness. The way she looked at me, like I had given her something important. She'd said her son worked in property law. I had her number saved, so I called. "Anna," she answered, surprised but warm. "I was hoping you'd ring." "I'm not sure if I'm calling for lunch or a favor," I said. "Well, lucky for you," she replied. "My son does both." We met the next day at a little cafe near Lighthouse Avenue. Dottie brought her son, Calvin, late 30s, polite, quiet, the kind of young man who looked you in the eye and waited for you to finish talking before he said a word. I told him what I had. I handed over the folder. "I want to put these in a trust," I said. "Nothing fancy, but I want them secured. Under a name that's not mine. I don't want my family digging into it if something happens to me." He nodded. "Do you want to sell them eventually?" "No," I said. "Not now. I just want the choice to be mine, not theirs." He asked me a few questions, nothing pushy. Dottie just sipped her tea and let him work. He explained how a trust works, how it can protect the assets, how my name wouldn't appear in public records if done properly. He told me about privacy, options, flexibility. I listened closely, then I looked him straight in the eye. "This time, I don't want anyone's permission." He nodded once, "Then let's do it right." Over the next week, Calvin took care of the paperwork. I signed what needed signing. I paid the filing fees. Dottie drove me to the bank to set up the trust account. I named it after my grandmother, Grace Archer Holdings. She was a woman who never asked for a thing, but never let anyone walk over her either. Marcia offered me her couch as long as I needed it. But I didn't stay too long. After the trust was complete, I went by the cottage on Bayview. The woman who was renting it had just moved out a few weeks earlier. The timing felt like it was waiting for me. The place was dusty, but clean. My old rocking chair was still in the corner, the one I'd left behind when I moved in with Mitch. I opened all the windows, wiped down the counters, and aired out the blankets. That first night, I slept like I hadn't in years. I didn't tell Mitch I was back. I didn't need to. He still hadn't figured out that I'd left. Maybe he thought I was sulking somewhere, waiting to be asked back. Maybe he figured I'd call once I calmed down. But I wasn't angry. I wasn't waiting. I was just done explaining myself. The properties were mine. The decisions were mine. And for the first time in a long time, the life I was living was mine too. I didn't need to be part of someone else's picture anymore. I had my own frame, and I was filling it, one quiet, steady piece at a time. The phone started ringing again, 2 days after I settled into the cottage. It was Mitch the first time. I let it go to voicemail. I didn't need to hear it to know how it would start. He called again that night, then again the next morning. Eventually, I listened. "Mom, where are you? We were worried. You just disappeared. You didn't say anything." He sounded rushed, like he was trying to sound concerned, but didn't quite know how. I deleted it. The next voicemail was Krissa. Her tone was soft but tight. "Anna, I think there's been a huge misunderstanding. We didn't mean anything by what was said. You know how things get on trips. Stressful." She didn't say what she said. She didn't apologize. She just circled around it like it wasn't even real. I deleted that one too. Then came the texts. "Call us. We're confused. We just want to talk." I said nothing. I'd spent years talking, explaining, covering, saying yes when I wanted to say no. I'd earned this quiet. A few days later, I got a letter in the mail. The envelope had Mitch's handwriting on it. That alone stopped me for a second. I sat at the kitchen table, opened it carefully. It wasn't long, just a few lines. "I thought we were helping you. I always assumed you were okay with everything. You never said otherwise. Maybe we took advantage without realizing it." He didn't mention how many times I babysat while they went to dinner, or how many grocery bills I paid when things got tight, or the 3 months I helped cover their mortgage after Krissa got laid off, even though I was living in their guest room at the time. He didn't mention the birthday card he forgot, or the time I asked if I could stay in the house for a few more months, and Krissa said, "We really need the space back." I folded the letter neatly and placed it in the drawer next to my oven mitts. I didn't throw it away, but I didn't answer either. That week, the rental notices went out. Calvin had prepared everything exactly the way I asked. Clean, legal, no fuss, just a formal update. The ownership had shifted, and leases were now managed through Grace Archer Holdings. The new rental terms were listed at fair market value. No more discounts, no more just this month extensions. A few days later, Krissa left another voicemail. "Hi Anna, we're a little confused. We got this thing from some trust company. Is this something you're involved in? Mitch is calling them now, but we're not sure what's going on. Let us know." Her voice cracked at the end, but it didn't change anything. I didn't call back. They weren't confused. They were shocked. They had built their comfort on the idea that I would always be there, quietly supporting things from the background, that I wouldn't ask questions, that I'd be too grateful to push back. But that support had been a choice, one I made over and over again, and I had made a new one. Back at the cottage, I started small projects. I scrubbed the kitchen cabinets, replaced a leaky faucet in the bathroom, bought a fresh set of curtains for the front window. I wasn't trying to start over. I just wanted things to feel lived in again, by me. Some days I sat out front with a cup of tea and watched the mail carrier make her rounds. She'd smile and wave. I'd wave back. No one from the family came by. No one knocked on the door. They weren't used to the silence. I think it unsettled them. But for me, it felt right. I wasn't punishing them. I was protecting myself. There's a big difference. One afternoon, while sweeping the porch, I got a text from Krissa. "If this is about the vacation thing, we honestly didn't mean to upset you. We thought you liked the quiet hotel." I didn't reply. I stood there, broom in hand, and read the message twice. Then I deleted it. Because that was the problem. They thought they knew what I needed. They decided what was best, without asking, without caring. It had always been like that. When Mitch asked me to move in after his layoff, I said yes because he needed help. When Chrissa asked if I'd mind watching the boys, just for a few hours, it turned into every weekend. When they said, "We'll handle dinner," I brought a dish anyway just in case. And when they said I'd like the quiet hotel, they weren't thinking about what I liked. They were thinking about themselves. Now I was thinking about me. For once. So I finished sweeping. I made myself a sandwich. And I sat down with a crossword puzzle from the free paper they hand out at the pharmacy. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't exciting, but it was peaceful, and it was mine. The cottage looked smaller than I remembered, but it still felt like home. The garden out front was overgrown, and the porch railing had a wobble, but the bones were solid. I ran my hand along the trim near the door, the same spot I once leaned on while talking to Ed after long shifts. That door had been forest green back then. This time, I painted it ocean blue. I don't know why I picked that color. Maybe because it felt open. Or maybe because it had nothing to do with anyone else. It was mine. Just like the house. I slept in my own bed that night. Not a guest room, not a hotel mattress. I didn't have much, just a few boxes, a coffee maker, a lamp from Marcia's. But it was enough. The first piece of mail I got wasn't a bill. It was a rent payment from one of the tenants, now under the trust. Calvin had set up the system, so everything came through clean, organized. A check with my initials on it, sent to Grace Archer Holdings. My hands shook just a little as I opened it. I wasn't surprised by the amount. I knew what the going rates were. What surprised me was how steady it made me feel. Like I wasn't just surviving, but standing on my own. That same week, I went to the post office and bought a money order. I made it out to a women's shelter a few towns over. I didn't sign my name, just mailed it quietly and walked out without looking back. I didn't do it to feel good or to be thanked. I just remembered how it felt to need help and not know who to ask. If that check gave someone a little peace, then good. That was enough. I started walking through town again, just small circles at first. Down Forest Avenue, around the pier, past the bench where Ed and I used to sit with ice cream cones. I stopped into the little bookstore that somehow still survived and bought a paperback for $2. The bakery had changed. New name, new owner, young woman in her 30s maybe. The counters were shinier now, and the walls had been repainted a soft yellow. But the smell was the same. Sugar, cinnamon, butter. I stood near the register, looking at the case, when the woman behind the counter said, "You're Anna Brooks, right?" I blinked. "I am." She smiled. "This place used to be yours. Everyone says you made the best lemon tarts. I still use your crust recipe, modified a little." I chuckled. That crust took me 3 years to get right. She boxed up a tart and handed it to me. "On the house, and thank you for building something solid. Makes it easier for people like me to keep it going." I didn't argue. I just nodded, took the box, and walked out. My throat felt tight, but not in a sad way. Just full. On a Thursday, I passed by the realtor's office on Oak Street. I wasn't planning to go that way, but I did. That's when I saw her, Chrissa. She stood outside the building, phone pressed to her ear, pacing. Her face was tight, and her voice carried across the sidewalk. "No, I don't care about comps right now. We need to figure out if there's a way around the lease terms. He said his friend might know a guy." I didn't hear the rest. I didn't want to. She hadn't seen me, and I made sure it stayed that way. I turned around, walked the other direction, and stopped at the florist's to buy a small potted rosemary. The woman wrapped it in brown paper and smiled. "Smells like home cooking," she said. Back at the cottage, I set the rosemary on the windowsill. The whole place smelled brighter. I spent that afternoon cleaning out the old drawer in the hallway, the one that used to collect keys and nails and buttons. I found a photograph tucked behind the drawer's back panel. It was Mitch, maybe 7 or 8, wearing a paper crown and holding a slice of cake. I remembered that day, his birthday at the park, when the grill wouldn't light, and we ended up ordering pizza instead. I didn't cry. I just held the photo for a moment, then slipped it back into the drawer and closed it. That evening, I ate the lemon tart on the back step while the sun dipped low behind the trees. It tasted just like I remembered. The crust was flakier now, but the filling still had that bite of real lemon. I didn't feel bitter. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt full. No more trying to be small. No more waiting to be seen. No more second-guessing every decision. The cottage wasn't perfect, but it was mine. The mail kept coming. The checks came on time. The garden slowly came back to life. And I kept painting. Baseboards, porch steps, the little bench by the door. The door stayed ocean blue, because when I looked at it, I felt steady. And that was more than I ever expected. A week after the blue door dried, I got another letter. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. Mitch. The envelope was heavier than the last one. The paper, thicker. He had taken his time with this one. I made a cup of tea before I opened it, sat at the kitchen table, let the morning light fill the room. I wasn't in a hurry. The letter was short, but not rushed. I keep thinking about how you've always been there. Every birthday, every holiday, every time we messed up, you showed up anyway. And now you're not. I don't know how to fix that. I don't even know where to start. We thought we were doing enough. Maybe we weren't listening close enough. Everything feels different now. He didn't say sorry. Not directly. But I could hear the weight in his words. Like a man finally realizing something was gone, and he couldn't name what. I folded the letter and placed it inside my journal. Not to reread, not to respond. Just to keep it somewhere that didn't demand anything from me. Later that evening, I opened the journal and wrote one line. I was never extra baggage. I just finally chose to carry myself. That was it. I didn't send him a response. There was nothing left that needed saying. Instead, I walked 2 blocks down to the bakery with a small box under my arm. Inside it were recipes, handwritten ones I'd kept in an old binder for years. My lemon tart, peach crumble, honey oat muffins, things people once lined up for, things I'd forgotten, were part of me. The new owner was behind the counter, wiping down trays. Her eyes lit up when she saw the box. I brought these for you, I said. You don't have to use them. Just figured they shouldn't stay in a drawer. She pulled out a few of the cards. Your handwriting's beautiful, she said. Back when my hands didn't shake so much, I smiled. She thanked me. I told her good luck and left. I didn't want praise. I just wanted to leave something that mattered behind. On Mondays, I started going to the library, the same one I used to take Mitch to when he was little. They had a small book club for women over 60. We read short novels and memoirs, mostly. Nothing heavy, just stories that felt real. The women were kind. Some had stories like mine, some didn't. But nobody asked me why I was there. They just scooted over and made room. That kind of quiet welcome sticks with you. Back home, I planted rosemary along the front steps. It reminded me of Ed. He always said the smell made him think of Sunday roasts and holidays. I used to tuck sprigs into napkin rings during Thanksgiving. Small touches, things no one thanked me for, but they noticed when they were missing. As I was kneeling down to press the soil around one of the plants, a little voice piped up from behind the fence. Did you always live here? I looked up. A girl, maybe 6, stood holding a jump rope. Brown curls, crooked smile. No, I said, standing slowly. But I finally came home. She nodded. Like that made perfect sense. She skipped off down the sidewalk, and I stood there a while longer, brushing dirt from my hands. Some days were quiet. Some days I missed the sound of family voices. But I didn't miss the feeling of being invisible in a room full of people I loved. Now when I made tea, I made it for one, and that was enough. I kept the cottage clean, but not perfect. I left books on the armchair, a dish in the sink sometimes. I played old records on the weekends. I bought a puzzle from the thrift store and spread it out on the dining table. I didn't rush to finish it, just worked a few pieces each day. Every once in a while, a check came in from the trust, a note from Calvin, an update from Dottie. Life kept moving, steady, quiet, mine. I never heard from Chrissa again. Mitch sent one more letter. A photo of the boys with a short line. They asked about you. I pinned the photo on my fridge. I didn't write back. Maybe someday they'd show up. Maybe not. I wasn't waiting. That chapter had been long. It had drained me more than I realized. But this new one, it felt soft. It felt like something I could hold without breaking. I still walked into town sometimes, bought lemons, shared recipes, said hello to neighbors, but I didn't explain myself anymore. I didn't feel the need to, because I wasn't trying to be enough for anyone else now. I had finally decided that I already was, and maybe that's what they didn't understand. I wasn't angry when I left. I was just finished carrying a load I never asked to hold. Have you ever let people carry your worth in their hands for so long? You forgot it was always yours to hold? If this story felt close to your own, leave a comment. Sometimes growth begins in silence. And if this story meant something to you, like it, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps more stories like this find the people who need them most. You're still here, you're still standing, and that still matters.